My Girl Life podcast is sponsored by Glamour Boutique. Glamour Boutique is the leading name in cross-dressing fashion and lifestyle with a physical location in New Jersey and, of course, their famous website. Be sure to use your My Girl Life discount code MGL15. And listen, I know they have your best interests at heart, so check them out. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of My Girl Life podcast. Before we get started, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like this episode if you liked it. It tells me I'm doing something you enjoy and allows me to keep doing it. So today is a special day as I'm going to interview and be interviewed by my best friend from college. Brian and I met in our freshman dorm, and we've been friends ever since. We've been through a lot in life individually, some very challenging, but mostly good. But we're still standing, right? I told Brian about Maddie years ago, 7 to be exact. And Brian and his wife have been very supportive, which I greatly appreciate. You can imagine I was super nervous about his and her reaction. So welcome to the show, Brian. Thanks for doing this, by the way.
My pleasure. And it's nice to meet you, see you, Maddie. And yeah,
It's a little weird, huh?
A little bit. Yeah. I've seen pictures. I just haven't spoken to Maddie.
Yeah, I'm nervous. I was nervous. I am nervous, but it'll get better. And I've wanted to do this. And then when you said you were willing to do it and wanted to do it, that was great. Let me just set the stage here. So I came out in pictures only to Brian. Like he said, he has not met Maddie in person. So he is experiencing live Maddie for the first time. Brian has a list of questions and I have a list of questions. And so we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. So can you share what went through your mind in the first moments of me telling you about Maddie?
Well, I think maybe setting the stage a little bit with how you told me about Maddie, because you were out visiting out in California, and you have been out here for the weekend, and I was with my new, at the time, girlfriend, now wife, and that was a fairly new relationship. So the three of us were spending a fair amount of time together. And I think that the night before, the afternoon before you were leaving the next day, you asked if we could spend some time, just the two of us. So, which wasn't necessarily an unusual request, because you and I always have great conversations, just the two of us. What was a bit interesting is, as we're sitting there, and I remember that night in the kitchen, and you kept plying me with beers. I
have another shot, Brian. Just have one more shot.
That's right. And so I think after the, I don't know, third or fourth one, I said, I got to get up and go to work tomorrow. And that's when I think you, unbeknownst to me, you were preparing maybe yourself.
I was building up the courage.
Yeah. And liquid courage. So you pulled out your phone and showed me a picture and said something to the effect, I think, do you recognize this person, or something like that? And
actually, I said, I've been hanging out with somebody and I wanted to share it with you.
Okay. I don't know. I don't remember that, but not that it matters.
The only reason I remember that is because I've said that to almost every single person I've come out to.
Oh, okay.
Right. Anyway, and your reaction was unique to most everybody.
Well, okay. Why don't you tell me what my reaction was? I think I know, but go ahead.
Well, you clocked me way earlier than everybody else.
Oh, okay.
I think on the second or third picture, you go, is that a dude? Or is that a guy? I don't know if you said dude or guy, but
I said,
I'm like, well, shit, you're not supposed to get that till later. Anyway, keep going.
Yes. So, well, that was I looked at however, one or two pictures, whatever it was, but that's when I said, is that a dude? And then the reaction from you, I think, was a bit delayed, but then you said that was you, essentially.
And so what went through your mind literally the first few moments, or did anything, like, were you just not even hardly thinking?
You mean through the beer haze that we had? No. I think I was so stunned, probably would be the word, trying to get the context. I didn't, at that particular moment, I mean, I'm just seeing this for the first time, and then you're telling me that it's you. I don't know that it dawned on me exactly what the context was.
Right.
And so then we started having that conversation. And when you explained to me briefly, during that particular time. I think my next question, or not long after that, was, are you transitioning? Or I didn't know exactly what was going
Right.
on. So I
Did
think
you
that
think I
was.
was joking at first at all? Did that ever cross your mind?
You mean that this was some kind of a
That
practical
wasn't that
joke
wasn't
against
you. That
me,
wasn't
or
me,
to me?
or it wasn't me, or yeah. Did you think I was joking in any way
No, I don't recall ever thinking that.
based on the sweat coming down off my forehead and
Yeah.
and the
Well,
8 beers? Like,
yeah, something probably, but no, I don't think I ever had any consideration that this was a joke. In fact, I think that would be something unusual to joke about. So I don't
yeah,
recall that.
yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. How long did it take to sink in? And I guess you did point out a good point, in that you wanted to know what it was about in context. Right? It wasn't a Halloween costume. Look what I did last Halloween or whatever. But kind of once you got the context, how did that kind of sink in?
Well, again, it was kind of late at night, and you were going. I had to take you to the airport the next day. So, which was, I think, I mean, whether you were going to the airport or whether we were going to spend the day together, we were going to have some time together. It wasn't like an early morning flight or anything. So it gave me time to digest this a bit and to contemplate what this meant.
Right. Totally.
And really, I think one of the things you did, and I'm sure you probably said this to everyone, which is just being open, saying there are no questions out of bounds. You can ask whatever you want to ask. And knowing you, like I know you, I know there's no questions out of bounds, that I'm not going to offend you. So that was actually I think a nice gesture on your part, and being open to that, because it did allow me to really just ponder what this meant to me, what it meant to you. And so the next day, as I was driving you to the airport, we had, from what I recall, a pretty in-depth conversation.
Yeah, it was perfect
And
to have that time in the car.
yeah, and so I was able to ask you a number of questions, which then beget more questions. And no, when you left, I think I just continued to think about this. And I don't remember if it was that afternoon, knowing you had already landed and got back home, whether it was that same day or the next few days afterwards. I would call you with just random questions. It's like, okay, tell me about this,
And I've appreciated that over the years. We don't talk about it all the time, but you will ask questions, and I love that. And I think I probably said, don't be afraid to ask any questions. That tells me you're comfortable with it, asking questions and even making some jokes, because our relationship obviously is built a lot on joking back and forth.
Mhm.
And if you never joked about it, that would tell me you were a little uncomfortable about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's comfort's an interesting word. It is unique for sure. I don't have a close. I mean, I don't have a close relationship with anybody like I have with you. You and I have a unique relationship. The things we talk about, our humor, our life experiences, our families, connections, all of the fact that you took Christmas presents for me when I was in college, when we were in college. But that's another story. But there's so we have a comfort level in general with each other. But it wasn't like I wasn't uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, maybe comfortable is not a good word now that you mention it. What words come to mind? What adjectives come to mind? And I'm going to ask you later if that's kind of changed over time.
Mhm.
In the first, so I guess that, trying to find out what you were thinking in the first minutes, hours, even days is probably difficult because, again, you weren't sure what to make of it. So later on, I don't know if comfortable was the right word. What would be the right word?
Well, I think initially shocked. I know you've asked me, and that might be one of the things we talk about later, is did I foresee something like this when we were younger? Like, not at all. So yes, surprised, shocked, and just kind of bewildered, maybe not
Okay.
really understanding what this meant to you, what it one of
Why?
the
The big
questions.
why?
Yeah, why? I mean, one of the questions I have for you is I guess to say it, what itch does this scratch for you? What does it feel like when you do this? So, I don't mean that to sound anything
That kind
other
of,
than,
yeah.
but because I can't empathize with it. I don't understand it, and I can't comprehend what it must feel like. So is there even anything in my own life that I do that may somehow,
Have me feel the same way. Like, why? Why do you do that?
yeah, what is it about this,
What itch are
about
you trying to
dressing?
scratch, Brian?
Yes, well, there we go.
Well, I like that because you know what? That's not offensive. It might be offensive to somebody who, if I said, I feel like a woman trapped in a man's body, I have gender dysphoria. I may or may not transition, but aside from that, I feel like a man trapped or a woman trapped in a man's body. I do not feel like that. I have no intentions of transitioning. I love my boy life. Um, and so itch is probably, fairly accurate. And, you know, you've asked me this before, and the itch has changed over time. And I think in the beginning, it was sexual. Maybe in the very, very beginning, and I'll talk about like when the first time I did it, but in the very, very beginning, I don't know that I thought anything. It was just, you just kind of did it. And it made me, well, let me back up. First time I did it, I think I was 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, with my mom's stuff. And I wasn't thinking all this stuff I'm thinking now, obviously. It felt good. And the one adjective that comes to mind is it felt soothing. And to be specific, back then moms had girdles and I would put it on and it liked the feel of it being tight around me. And I guess soothing is the best adjective that comes to mind. So after that, whether that went on for a year or 2 or 3, I don't really remember. Then I stopped and I don't remember thinking about it ever again till later in life, which is unusual because most people start when they're young. They either keep doing it or they never stop thinking about it. They can't do it, but they don't stop thinking about it. So, yeah. So in the beginning, I don't think I was thinking much. As an adult, when it came back, I think it was mostly sexual. I think I could process, maybe the soothing word became something else. Maybe soothing was more turn on. Maybe that adjective changed. And so it was done. I did it in private and I felt kind of ashamed about it. I'm like, am I gay? Like, why do you like this? It's kind of, probably the same questions you had. And over time, I realized that has nothing to do with sexuality. And then it morphed into, as I met people and had friends, then it became less sexual and more social friends. And now I had this persona. And then you and I have talked about maybe attention is part of the recipe or the explanation. And as you know, I'm not shy from attention. It's either been Jim Deaney, the great magician, or Pegasus, the band, the music
Well,
business.
I think it's important just for the people watching to know that Maddie was quite the drummer, but never was.
Brian, you're ruining my reputation. Come on.
Well, and I have pictures, and you and I played music together. But no, the twirling of the sticks, the throwing the sticks, the biting the cymbals. I think maybe a little attention seeking.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I think that's kind of how it morphed. And, it's not lost on me when I'm dressed and I look in the mirror, it somewhat turns me on. And then gender envy starts to come into play when I found that phrase. It's like, maybe I'm envious of what girls can do, the power they have, how society treats them, the attention, whatever. Maybe that's part of the component. So that's kind of the transition of the itch, if you will.
Is there a moment that you can put your finger on as an adult, not as a kid, but as an adult, where that crystallized, like, this is what I feel like I need to do to satisfy that desire, whatever that desire is?
Yeah, it was after the second divorce.
Right.
And I think it probably was, the seed was there, right? I didn't just sit and go, okay, now what do I do? I'm divorced for the second time. I don't want to go out and date again right now, if at all, because, my age, it's going to go right down the path of marriage or living together. With the first divorce with the kid's mom, I just dove into dating. I got on eHarmony, and I just, I didn't date a whole lot in high school and college. I had to watch you steal all the cute girls, and I got the leftovers. But other than that, and maybe that's part of this whole thing, I think we just discovered
Wait
the
a minute.
reason.
Is this about me?
It's your
No,
fault.
okay.
It's your fault. And I didn't know how to play the guitar, and you did. So I think instead of the dating and whatever, I needed a diversion. And this was the diversion. And obviously, I didn't just think, oh, what am I going to do? I think I'll just start dressing like a woman. The seed was already there. So that's when Maddie was born. And that's when I went out in public for the first time, got a Facebook profile, et cetera, et cetera. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just, again, this is where I don't understand how it feels and how what it is that leads to this, to dressing being crystallizing as that solution, if you will, as opposed to, and I mean, I could make up a
Well, it could be drinking, could be gambling,
taking guitar lessons, or
there
whatever.
you go. You joined a band. There's your itch.
There you go.
We all have different itches in different places.
Well, a lot of itches going on. But so, you going back to another part of your response a minute ago, the sexual part of it. When you say that, what do you mean by that in terms of it being a sexual component to this?
Right. Well, again, I don't understand this entirely, but the one phrase that I finally came across was autogandophilia. And autogandophilia means, in a nutshell, embodying the object of your desire. And there's more to that theory, and I was very much made aware of this when I posted something about it in my community on Facebook, that the guy who came up with this theory also doesn't believe trans is a real thing. And he's kind of a crazy guy, and his theory goes off in a direction that we don't all support. But I was focusing on the embodying the object of your desire. And that hit the nail on the head. I mean, when I would dress and look in the mirror, I was what I desired. I dress like the girl I want to be with. I dress like a girl that I'm attracted to. And that's my clothes, my hair, most everything. So, but yeah, and that usually has a sexual component to it.
Yeah.
And there definitely was true until it kind of morphed again into the social part.
Yeah. So, I mean, the social part, and you and I, again, have talked about this before, and I do know you as and I mean it in the nicest of ways. I mean, you do seek attention. And so my questions to you in the past, and again, how much of your dressing now is about this persona that you have and the attention that you get versus the going back to the day one where it's scratching maybe another itch. Because I'm assuming that when you started doing this and when you were embarrassed and or not being public with it, that you didn't have any concept necessarily of having this personality that people gravitated to.
Not even close. If you'd have asked me, I would say, are you kidding me? And again, my presentation was not what it is today. And so if I was presenting like I did back then, I would not go out in public. But I did go out in public because I guess I didn't have a choice. I didn't know any better. But anyway, to your point.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, I've kind of watched, or at least listened to, when you and I talk about the evolution of Maddie, and, going from, I don't know that you had not introduced me to Maddie until I think Maddie had kind of come out of her shell a bit.
Well, if she was born in early 2017, 2016. So when I got divorced, I left in May. And that summer, I started delving back into it a little bit. And then that fall, I think I went out in public for the first time. And then that January, February, maybe it was January, it's a new year, I thought, I'm going to get on Facebook. Yeah. So again, I think back to your question, I don't know if I answered that thoroughly, is that I never in a million years thought that it would turn into a social thing, having friends outside the LGBT community, telling people like you, and then my kids, which I just recently told.
Right.
Absolutely not. As I think about it, it might not be a whole lot different than when I moved to California. And, I played in a band in college, as you know, and I wrote some songs. And when I got out there, I found a publisher and sent my songs, and they said, you need to learn how to write professional songs. I found National Academy of Songwriters and started writing. And then I took classes at UCLA. So that whole thing evolved. I never thought in a million years I would be writing with people I knew that I idolized that wrote hit songs and meeting my idols. Never thought in a million years. So that is a similar thing, I think. I just like to take the next step as it's presented to me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
And then the My Girl Life and the podcast, I really started the website just to write some blog articles and kind of express how I was feeling. And I did, so I did a website called mygirllife.com, and I posted some blog articles, and then I did that for about 6 months. And then I don't know, I just thought, well, maybe I'll do a podcast. And so I started the podcast, and that has morphed into something I had no idea. It would be 40 to 50,000 views a month on the YouTube channel. And yeah, and I have sponsors, and it's just kind of crazy. So I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I don't think there was a vision. I think there was, like you said, an itch to scratch. And maybe the itch to scratch with the music and whatever was, I want to hear my songs. The first time I heard my song, instead of me playing the piano and singing it, I heard it in a studio with a good singer, not a record, but, a producer who produced a decent demo and a good singer. It was like, that was amazing to me. And then I wanted more. Then I'm like, well, now I want it to be recorded. And recently, as I've shared with you, I'm able to get my demos done with some tools that basically sound like a record.
Mm-hmm.
I think if my ultimate goal was to have one of my songs recorded by a famous artist, part of that goal, I think, was to hear my song as a record, a finished product by an amazing singer, and then to have it released, obviously, with somebody that was successful. I think I've actually achieved the first half of that, because to hear my songs in that fashion is awesome. So again, it's just a similar path. And where does this go? I'm not really sure. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, well, and having kind of followed various paths with you, and watched you engage in, I didn't know you as Jim Deaney, but I mean, the magic piece of it.
That was a persona.
Right. And it was a instrumental part of your early life.
And I couldn't just do magic. I had to go work at the magic store, and I couldn't just do that. I had to go get a job at a pizza place and be a magician at the pizza place.
Well, I mean, Jim, or I'm sorry, Maddie, that is the pinnacle of the magic business, isn't it? The pizza place.
No, Brian, I hate to correct you, but Casa Bonita was the pinnacle.
Casa Bonita, I'm sorry.
Career. Let's get that straight.
Okay, all right. Yeah, going back to the beginning, I mean, you asked me about what I thought. What were your biggest concerns when you were going to tell me, when you were preparing to tell me? What were your concerns about how I was going to react? And knowing me the way you do, were you really concerned about something? What did you think I was going to say?
Great question. So I was nervous as hell, obviously. And let me just tell you the reason I told you in the first place. And it's the reason I told the first few people. I have people that I haven't told. I have friends that I've known, not as long as you, but that I talk to once in a while. We'll go have a beer every few months, couple months, and we'll just talk about surfacey things. The people I told, which my mom was the first one, was because I'm sitting on her couch every Saturday for 2 hours, and she's in her late 80s, talking to her, sharing, and I'm lying to her. She's like, what did you do this week? What's new in your life? And I would tell her some things, but the most exciting part, I couldn't tell her. And I felt like I was lying. So I felt like I was becoming a little more distant. I said, I'm not going to sit her on the couch and lie to my mom for the next 5 years. So I chose you because I just felt like when you don't know that about me and it's becoming such an important part of my life, I feel like, the distance between us, our friendship was getting wider in my head, not your head, obviously. So that was the main reason that I chose to tell you. And I wasn't nervous about your initial reaction. I knew you would be cordial about it. I knew you would be supportive. I knew you wouldn't embarrass me or make a strong opinion. I knew that. My worry was later on, and the worry was, would it change the relationship? Because I really value our relationship. And even if we still spoke, it wouldn't, if it wasn't the same, it would be detrimental.
Well, I mean, I can understand that. And not having something as intimate and as personal as this for you. And if I do have anything that would, I mean, I can't even think of something that you don't know about me and that I wouldn't share. But if there was anything, it's not, I don't have the right word to say to this, but it's not as controversial or as,
right.
You know what I mean?
Fringe.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. Fringe. So, that's, I mean, that and I just recognize this about myself. I mean, I'm pretty down the middle of the road in terms of, me. I mean, I don't go too far off one way or the other.
Well, and you just got that new DVD player, and I know you're excited about that. And you're always careful about your decisions.
I finally heard they're going to catch on, so
yeah.
I think they're here to stay. But there's a lot we could riff on that, but we won't. No, what was the question again?
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
What was the question?
What you were?
Oh, you were going to say you don't have anything, because when I shared it with you, I knew you'd be. I'll cut this out. I knew you would react okay in the beginning, but I was worried about how it changed our relationship.
Yes.
On the inside, because the outside, I knew I would never know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where I was going. Is that I mean, number one, I think anyway, and at this point in my life, I think I'm pretty in tune with myself. I'm a very accepting person. I not judgmental, and I want people to be happy and live the life that you want to live. So, and for you, because we are such good friends, I want you to have a happy life, and this brings you happiness. That doesn't mean I understand it, but it's not really for me to understand. It's not my path in terms of trying to get into the community, if you will, from that standpoint, but embracing it and supporting it and being your friend. Of course, I would always do that.
Right. So what have been some of the challenging things on the inside that I may not know about? And again, we've talked about it enough. I think I know some of that, and I think you would have shared some, but what are some of the more challenging things on the inside that you've maybe said to me, but are challenging in terms of, like, I was worried, like, you would think, do I really know you now? Like, who are you? I mean, that's always a worry. That was a worry with my kids, is that I tell them so far down the road that they're looking at all those years going, well, who was that? Which may or may not be the case, but that was what I was worried about.
Well, I think the things that I've been most concerned about, in no particular order, but maybe this is the first one, is that your safety. I've asked you about that. And that is, given just the political discourse and division and it's not just all political, it's just mindset and whatever.
Just people. Yeah.
People being people. And then the kind of not too long ago, the sheets being pulled off. People can just do and say what they want with no sense of compassion or decorum or anything. So it's concern for your safety. And I know overall you've had a good positive experience. That doesn't mean that you're not going to run into, some trouble sometime and somebody with an attitude. So that's probably the biggest concern that I would have about that. And I hope this comes out the right way. And then again, not trying to be, whatever this sounds like, but in the LGBTQ community, the community, let's just go with I'm not sure.
The community. Yeah. We don't want to,
what I mean? Yeah. I know I'm going to miss something but in the community, there are aspects of the community that, the physicality means nothing. I mean, a gay man or woman, for example, walking down the street, you would never, there's no physical component that's going to say they're in the community or
it's going to be a tell. Yeah.
And I haven't, admittedly, I mean, you're the only friend that I know that dresses. You're certainly the only one that I've had any conversation with. But have I, through my life, seen men that are dressing? Yes. And there is it's noticeable. I mean, you can.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure I've seen people who are dressing that you can't tell. But there's a reason when I looked at the picture and you showed it to me and I said, is that a dude? And so my point in this is that it isn't lost on people when they see someone dressing in many times. And so my concern is that, somebody's going to have an attitude about that. And so yeah. So I don't know how concerned you are about that, but as your friend,
to that point, I'm concerned. It's not lost to me. As you said that to me a while back, and you were referring to, we got on the subway to go downtown San Francisco to go out to dinner or whatever we did. And there was a trans person on the subway, not the subway. What was it? A train or?
Well, I guess the BART system. Yeah.
The BART system.
Basically.
Yeah. And we all saw the person. None of us said anything, right? It was like, whatever. And then you asked me, it was a while afterward, you said, so that was not lost on you. And I go, not at all. I clock people. Just so you know, when a person, a crossdresser, gets found out or whatever, we call it getting clocked. They clocked me. So they realized I was a man.
Sure.
That's being clocked. So, and ever since you said, was it not lost on you? Now I use that all the time. I go, it's not lost on me.
It's not,
because it's just a really good way to say, I get it. I see it. I know what you're talking about, whatever.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's not lost on me that there's people that most of the time I assume people are going to know I'm a guy within a few minutes, especially if they talk to me. And even when I walked in the bar, I know people are, clocking me. And I'll be honest with you, I like it. And it's actually, in a weird way, it's become a positive, because more so with women, they will gravitate towards you. And I don't know if it's because, and I'm not gay, but, pocket gay, or they want, it's unique and it's fun and I'm going to be friends with Maddie. And I don't know. Or maybe it's just that I stand out and I'm with my heels and I'm taller, but then I can present well and I can talk. I can follow it up. If somebody comes up and says, I love your hair, or I love your shoes, then I can follow it up and be funny and make them comfortable. Right. And so then we end up being friends, even if it's bar friends. So to your point, it's actually, being clocked has actually been a positive thing. I guess if I was a real woman and walked in looking like I did, I'd probably get attention, but that would be probably more from men. And I think the women would maybe be a little more standoffish, or I don't think they'd be running up to me. I just think it's such a novelty. I think people are gravitated to it. And I don't understand it, to be honest with you.
Do you think that all cross-dressing men get that same attention in that way?
Not even close.
Right.
And that's no fault of their own. And that's not a slight on them, but It's society reacting to something. I can't control that. And if you look like just a guy who put a dress on or a skirt and didn't do a lot of makeup or any makeup or did bad makeup, and your hair doesn't look natural, then you're going to get a much different response. Maddie could walk into the same bar I go into every week, who everybody loves Maddie. If I went in there looking like I just described, I would have a whole different experience. And we wouldn't be having the same conversation. And I don't think it's fair, because some of those people are dressing because they feel like a woman trapped in a man's body. They just want to be a girl. They don't want to be Barbie like Maddie. I want to be Barbie. I want to be the cute girl next door when I go out, and they just want to be themselves. And society doesn't treat them nicely, and it's not fair to them, because they're really the ones being true to themselves. I mean, there's a part I'm being true to myself, but it's a part of me, and they're being true to their whole selves, and they just want to be a regular woman. Put their hair in, some of them will grow their hair long. It doesn't look great, sometimes, and they'll put it in a ponytail and not hardly any makeup, like women go to the grocery store. But society's going to treat them differently.
I'm curious about this, and I think I've asked you this before. How do you know that you want to feel like a woman? I mean, as a man, how do you know? Well,
when I listen to the Shania Twain song, Brian,
well, no,
that's all of a sudden I just want to feel like a woman. I don't know.
That's right. That's the holy grail of
that's how I get started.
How to feel like a woman. Yeah. Well, okay, but aside from that, I mean, it's a good song, by the way. But I mean, what is it that I wouldn't know what it feels? I wouldn't know what a woman feels like in that regard to aspire to that. So how does one know that that's what you want to feel like as a man? That's what it is you're striving for. I'm curious about it more than anything.
It's a great question. I think I know part of the answer. And I'm not sure. I'm guessing on all this stuff. I don't totally understand it. I understand parts of it. And even those parts, I'm not sure. There's not a book that tells you exactly. But I think throughout my life, I've never been a guy's guy or a manly man. I don't work on cars. I care less about cars. I couldn't care less about cars and working on cars and being handy. I'm not handy. I can write you a great love song. I can pull a quarter out of your ear. I can be a good friend. I'm a good conversationalist. And by the way, I prefer having conversations with women because they're just more interesting to me. I mean, I can be with the guys and talk sports and whatever, and I do that all the time. But I think it allowed me, I'm getting really deep here. I think it allows me to not have to be the manly man or feel bad because I'm not the guy who's handy and who can, fix the girl's faucet or, fix my car or change the tire or do the guy thing. And maybe this allows me to not have to feel that way. I don't think that consciously, but as I dissect it, maybe that's part of it.
You just reminded me, I got to go call the handyman to do this handyman stuff that I don't know how to do, but that's.
Well, Brian, I can get you started. We'll get you a nice wig and I
really wasn't
make
going
the skirt
that
too short.
Yeah, no.
Even my friends, like my friend, her boyfriend, he did my brakes and I needed some snow tires. He goes, I got a great deal. He knows all that stuff. He's like, I'll get the snow tires. You just pay me back, whatever. Normally, because they know me as Maddie. In fact, they call me Maddie when I'm in boy mode for the most part. My friend, she'll call me Jim more than anybody. But so maybe it makes me feel less, not guilty, but ashamed that I'm not the guy's guy and I can do all those things. And they usually drive, and I ride with them. And then, they'll even,
you're stereotyping.
They'll even offer to drop me off, at the door, so I don't have to walk in the hills. I mean, it's kind of a nice life, to be honest with you. What's not to like, Brian?
I think it's now starting to resonate with me. Why? Okay. Figured it all Maddie, out. When was the last time you bought dinner for yourself?
No, that I buy, unfortunately. Okay, I'm changing the subject a little bit. So how did Tamara, your wife Tamara, react? What was her reaction? In the beginning, not hours and days, but in the beginning and maybe now, because it's been years.
Well, she just came in the house, so if you want to ask her,
God.
but so I think the way she reacted,
Ask me what?
I'm on the call. She just came in and said, "Ask me what." All right, you're gonna edit that out, I assume. But anyway,
Probably not. I'll probably
okay.
keep it.
Okay, all right. So, well, keep in mind she had only met you that weekend, so
Yeah, and that made me really even more nervous.
yeah. So, but now you've gotten to know her obviously much better. I mean, she not knowing you other than for that weekend, I think it was more like, what? You're kidding me. What? Tell me more. I mean, I think she had some of the probably the same questions you're having for me too. It's like, did you recognize this in his past? Was there anything about him that would have led you to believe that this was, something that he does? And so I think there were more questions with regards to that and she had questions and we would talk about it. And some of those questions, I can't give you any particular example because it's been so long, but I'm sure that some of the questions I asked you probably came from her.
Well, and besides the fact that she wanted to go shopping with Maddie, I thought that was a good sign.
Yes, exactly. I think that was one of her responses not long after that was, well, when are we going shopping?
Which was nice to make me feel comfortable.
Yeah. So, I mean, and you know her. I mean, she and I are very similar, open-minded.
You wouldn't be with somebody who wasn't.
Right. They're very accepting. And so, I mean, she loves you and that, and as she's gotten to know you, more so, I mean, she's known you more, or she's known you her whole experience with you, with the exception of maybe 2 days, has been that Maddie's part of your life.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But not having the relationship to lean on, I guess, for lack of a better word, having her know, and she's an important part of your life. It was a lot like my son's live-in girlfriend. It wasn't just telling him. I assumed he would tell her. In fact, I preferred that he tell her. I didn't want him to keep it. So now I got two people, and one is not my child. And what are they going to think? Because they're going to have an influence on my son, and your wife's going to have an influence on you. So yeah, that was a second degree of worry.
Yeah. Well, and again, you didn't know her at all when you first met that weekend you came out, but you got to know her, and whether you felt more comfortable after a few days or just over the last 7-8 years, you've gotten to know her. So she's very accepting.
Yeah. Well, it's not lost on me. Get it? Have your views on gender and self-expression changed and evolved because of my sharing of my dressing? I think you're pretty accepting. Probably not, but
yeah, I don't think so. Has anything changed? I mean, maybe my understanding, or I mean, just through our conversations, the questions, again, going back to your openness to welcome any question, talk about anything. So from that standpoint, I feel like I'm more knowledgeable, or at least have more information with regards to the community, the lifestyle, the just kind of,
yeah, because you asked me questions.
Yeah, I mean,
didn't you ask? Well, maybe if somebody else asked, what's the difference between a trans woman and a crossdresser? They were just the average population person, and they didn't know. It's very obvious to me, but yeah, you've asked some really good questions, and you've made me think too.
Well, I think one of my first questions to you, going back to when you first told me, when I think I asked probably when we were going to the airport, was, are you transitioning, thinking that maybe, okay, you are you're going in that direction, towards being a woman. And so that, I mean, for probably obvious reasons, I would have been
Oh,
more
very
shocked with
obvious.
that.
I think that's probably the number one concern, even though like my sister didn't say that, my mom, I said it right when I told them, like I wanted to get it out on the table, because that would be the first thing that I would think of. And it's not lost on me that, showing somebody Maddie in pictures and saying this is what I do on the weekends is a whole world of difference between this is who I'm going to be, and this is Jim's going away and it's going to be Maddie. And that is, I mean, it's like night and day. And so I appreciate that. And so I wanted to let people know I have no desire. Okay, I have a question for you. Even though I've told you that probably 50 times, and maybe over time you believe me more and more, was there a time where you're like, yeah, but that may change?
Yeah, I will, for sure. I mean, I haven't thought that in a long time, but I did think that it was at least possible that you were easing me into this, and that this was, this was the gentle way for step one. And
Right.
then maybe there's going to be step two.
I've interviewed lots of trans women who every one of them started out dressing.
Yeah.
It just went to further and it was different for them. But yeah. So that's a very natural thing.
Yeah. But I haven't thought that. I couldn't even tell you how long ago it was. But I mean, again, with my limited kind of understanding of this, but my thought would be, if nothing else, given our ages and given how long you've been dressing, I mean, at some point, if you were going to do that, you'd be doing that.
Brian, 39 is not that old to transition. Come on.
Well, I'm 40 now, so.
But you're always a little bit older for a few months. Yeah. How do you feel about the societal judgment on like cross-dressers and maybe even for trans people? Has that changed at all now that you're an advocate for Maddie, you support Maddie? Does it give you a little, not empathy, because you're not judging, but it's different, and it's just something that's like, well, it's not really going to be part of my life, or I don't really know anybody. But when you see somebody, does it change the way your brain reacts?
When I see somebody who is
like obviously a man dressing like a woman, yeah.
Well, I suppose for me personally, because of you, I maybe, I don't know if more empathetic or just I don't know, recognizing that that's a lifestyle, that's just something that makes them feel good, whatever it is. As far as it relates to society as a whole, I mean, to be honest, I'm probably, I think acceptance of the community is what word am I looking for? It's on a trajectory maybe that isn't always, it's not straight up by any means. And
right, it's not linear. Yeah.
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. I mean, politically, again, going back to that with what's going on in this country and really the world, people feel open to say whatever it is they want to say. And then that can kind of precipitate the way people think and feel about certain things. And so and coupled with the fact that I don't know that, it's going to be a long time. You and I are not going to be around when and if the community gets wholly embraced and accepted as just not even an issue anymore. Because I
kind of like being gay. I mean, being gay today is really not that big a thing. I mean, yes, there's discrimination, and yes, there's a whole series of challenges, but for the most part, and I think it's easier for people to understand either you're gay or straight. I'm living in the gray. It's hard for people to absorb and understand the gray and the scale.
Yeah,
they like the binary.
And
it's easier to understand.
What I would say is I do. I mean, but I don't think this is a linear thing either. I think there's gay and straight, and those two, these are sexual preferences.
Right. That was, yeah.
So what you're part of the community doesn't seem to be associated with a sexual preference. It's more of some kind of identity. But to take our conversations, you still are attracted to women. You're not attracted to men. And just simply because you dress as a woman sometimes doesn't change your sexual nature in terms of who you're sexually attracted to. So I don't even see it in the same conversation as gay or heterosexual.
Well, I guess in understanding people being different,
Yeah.
the binary is easy for people to, absorb and understand versus this spectrum. And there's lots of things that are on a spectrum. People are just not black and white. Now, some people live in a world of black and white, and good for them. I live in a world with all of my life. I have three rules, that kind of guide my life. And that is, am I hurting anybody? And am I hurting myself? And is it illegal? And if the answers are no to all three, I'm probably pretty good with it. Now, I said that to my brother, and he about choked on his dinner because he goes by the Bible and he's very black and white. And he probably went through his head, probably couldn't fathom having to decide, because I have to decide every day what's right and wrong. So if those are my rules, am I hurting somebody? Am I hurting myself? But if I have a book that tells me what's right and wrong, then I don't have to make those decisions, right?
Well, and his is like anyone, whether it's the Bible or any other book, it's your interpretation of what's right and wrong as well. So, I mean, that's a whole different conversation.
And I think what you were maybe leading to, and we got off track a little bit, was I asked you about society in general. And I'm pretty sure there's things that you don't agree with the LGBTQ community. There's things I don't necessarily agree with. I have feet in both worlds. In fact, I have a foot and a half in the general population and a half a foot in the LGBTQ community, just because of Facebook and my podcast and some of my friends. But, for instance, trans female athletes competing against genetic women, I don't think it's fair. I just don't think it's fair. And until there's a day where you can take a test, and I mean, I can't imagine there would ever be, but when you're deemed, on the same playing field, not literally, as a genetic woman, then go ahead and compete. But I don't think it's fair. So that's, I'm probably going to catch flack for saying this on the podcast. But I understand that. And I understand the pronouns being all the pronouns. And it's not just he or she or that. It's 50 of them. And I don't even understand them all. And the general population is thinking, this community is forcing this on us because the community has come so far, which is great. You can't watch a TV show or a movie without a trans or a gay person in it, which is wonderful. I actually understand, when people of color would say, well, I watch movies or I watch people in positions of power, and I don't see anybody that looks like me when they're young. They don't see a black president. They don't see a black vice president. They don't see a black president of a company or as many. And now I kind of knew what they were talking about, but now I understand. When I see a crossdresser on a TV show, I love it. And it makes it more normal for me.
Yeah, that's understandable.
But there's there's Pride Night for every sports team. You walk into Target and there's a Pride display, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I think the general population feels like, you know what? I don't care what you do. Just don't shove it down my throat. And I feel like they feel like it's being shoved down their throat, which it may or may not be. But does that ring a bell? Or does that make sense?
Well, I think I agree with just about everything you said. I mean, and the shoving it down your throat and going overboard, which I think is not uncommon with a lot of things, that it gets some traction and then it goes a little too far.
And then it comes back and then it goes for another push.
And that's it. I mean, and these things just iterate over time and then hopefully towards a positive direction. I think on the trans women competing, I think that people want to be equitable and people want to be fair. The challenge is that you're trying to create an equitable situation that isn't going to be fair to somebody. And you're going to you can err on the side of one way or the other, but at the end of the day, trans women competing against biological women, I think most people believe that's wrong.
I agree.
And in the context of what we're talking about, competitive sports and that sort of thing, you can't make everything equitable.
Right.
And so by virtue of it's unfortunate that a trans woman can't compete against biological women, but sometimes things are just not, you got to err on what's right as opposed to what feels good. And
well, I wanted to play football in high school, but I wasn't big enough, and I was this big around, and so I played tennis. Well, should I have been able to, I wasn't born with a body to play football. I just wasn't. So guess what? I can't play football. I wanted to play pro football when I was a little kid. I'm just not that, I didn't have the genetics for that, or even to be a really great athlete. And so, yeah, you're right. Everything can't be fair. That's a
I
great
even
point.
have the question, and I haven't, not that I, to my knowledge, I've never met a competitive athlete who is a trans woman competing against women. But I would ask them, so what is it you're getting out of this? What emotional payoff are you getting from this, knowing what you know about yourself? How is that rewarding to you?
What a great question.
And yeah.
Well, for some people, it may be the medal. It's like, I don't care how I get the medal. That medal's going to hang up in my house. But for the most part, people do things like that for other reasons, not for the Grammy, not for the Academy Award. Usually when they're doing it for that, they're not going to get it. But that's a great question.
Well, I think look, if you just want to compete, why not go the other direction and compete against men? I mean, if the competition is really what you're after, and would it not be more rewarding? I'm just thinking of this, but would it not be more rewarding to be a victor as a trans woman against men, as opposed to a victor or even a competitor against men, versus a dominating trans?
That's a good point. I can tell you why that probably doesn't set well. Is that, again, there's different levels of sensitivity with all this stuff. Some people,
sure,
if you misgender me, which you've misgendered me a couple times here, and I have friends that misgender me once in a while. I misgender myself when I'm telling a story, and I go, dude, I said to myself, dude, but it's intent. If somebody's trying to be rude or hurt you,
sure,
that's a whole different story. But some people, and I have friends that get very butthurt about it, and they get very defensive about it, and it's like, you're putting that on people that don't know these pronouns.
right?
And as long as the intent is, good, then you need to chill. And so those people, so that person, and also when they change their name, they call their old boy name their dead name. They call it their dead name. And they don't want to have anything to do with it. They want to change their license. They want to change their passport. They are a woman. They have gender dysphoria. They feel horrible. They hate their body. They hate their body parts. But if they had to go compete in a man's sport, even though maybe at the end, if they beat them, they would feel even better. Like, I beat these men, but they would feel slighted in the same way if their license had their boy name, or if somebody misgendered them, because that would be the ultimate misgender, is that I'm in the boys, division. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying. Yes. Do I, again, something I just can't comprehend. I don't get that.
Yeah, I have a hard time understanding true gender dysphoria, but I've seen it enough with good friends that I under,
Yeah. I mean, I think there are some things. I think there are sometimes, and it not just related to this subject matter. It can be anything. It could be, you got to be having, it could be a conversation about anything. But people sometimes, I think they embrace some weird sense of satisfaction in being, what word am I looking for?
Go against the grain, shocking.
No, to be offended.
Oh.
Like that it's almost like self-inflicted schadenfreude where that's me being offended by something somehow gives me some weird satisfaction.
Right.
And
Well,
there are
they
things that
probably were that way in boy mode too. It's probably a personality thing
could be,
that may
yeah.
not go away whether you transition or not.
Yeah, it could be, but I don't, again, I'm somebody who I don't try to offend anybody. I feel like I'm very open. And so if I don't know that I've had too many that I can recall any situations where I've said something where I can tell somebody took offense to it unintentionally on my part. I know when I'm trying to offend somebody, I'm overt about it. So, but if I happen to do it unintentionally, then you do kind of look for, hey, just let me explain myself. You misunderstood me.
Yeah, I know what you're
But I
talking
think
about.
there are some people that just almost enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, part of what I want to do as I grow the podcast is start talking to people like you and who are in the general population and try to bridge that gap and build bridges, even if it's one at a time. I've done that with my friends. I've told you about the bar I go to. It was a very conservative bar, if you will. And I came to find out, I mean, they were nice. And Billy and Mel, the bartender, and Billy, patron, they really made it easy for me to kind of fit into the conversation, whatever. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have gone back. But there was a few others, one in particular that was just appalled that I was in there. And I didn't know to what degree till literally just maybe a year ago. This is 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And now that person, well, not now, that person over time, when I went to the bar, he's given me cards when my mom died and when my dad died. I gave him a card when his mom died. He hugs me when I come into the bar, just like everybody else. And I can even go, he goes to this other bar once in a while. Um, I'll go there and I'll sit next to him. And it's not with our other friends around. It's different when there's a bunch of people. It's just kind of him and I. And I'm like, are you sure you're not embarrassed? Are you sure you're okay with, people don't know if you're with me or not. And he doesn't care. And so that's amazing because
Uh-huh.
he is the farthest person that I would have thought would be that comfortable or accepting. And so I want to say it's one of my proudest things. Proud is not the right word because it's not like I did anything necessarily, but it's one of the most heartfelt things that he can find that part of himself to be friendly with Maddie, and not just friendly, but a really good friend and sweet and whatever.
Yeah.
I'd like to do that with more people.
Well, I think you can, and I think I mean, in a much bigger way, this is one of the things that I think people should be doing everywhere and in a lot of different walks of life. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
all of the discourse on social media, not too many years ago, I kind of got caught up in that a little bit. And then I just, this is, you're screaming into the void. That's just inane bullshit.
Are you
That
saying that
people,
we need to have a get to know a Republican day or week,
well, what
Brian?
I'm saying
Is
is
that what
that
you're saying?
well, among other things, yeah. But I started calling my friends that I had, that there was conflict or that there was, a disagreement, if nothing else, and
Wait,
saying,
that
hey,
you had a disagreement with him, like a
yeah,
conversation?
on social media. And
Oh,
I would
okay.
call them and say, I want to talk to you about this, as opposed to doing this tit for tat social media thing, and have a conversation and talk about whatever the topic was, politically or otherwise. And I find that so much more rewarding. But in a
Good
bigger
for you.
way, if you just engage people who are different than you, you get some empathy and you get some perspective and you get some consideration from where they're coming from. Everybody has their history, they walk their own path, and it's directed them in whatever direction they find themselves in, place they find themselves in. So I find talking to people, I mean, even I manage a bunch of young people, getting them to pick up the phone and call a customer is hard to do, but when they do it, they're like, wow, that really worked. Yeah, it's amazing what happens when you talk to people.
No,
There's a
that's a great idea.
there's a
I remember
quote.
back in the day when I was posting on my boy Facebook, I would watch CNN at night and I'd get all worked up and I'd shoot off a post. And I will say that I mostly did, I just showed, I would post something that that they did or something that happened versus like just showing them here, you make a decision. Here's the video, rather than me make a big commentary. But it fell on deaf ears, right? And you and I talked about that. And it's like, Jim, have you ever changed anybody's mind on Facebook?
Yep.
No. So
Yeah.
I start watching Seinfeld at night, and my
Yeah.
my life is a lot better.
Yeah. It's interesting. There, I wish I had the quote in front of me, but if anybody wants to look it up, just look up the, famous Anthony Bourdain quote. And he talks about just doing things, I had a couple of lines, go sit in the bar that's quiet and have a drink and sit next to someone that you've never met before and have a conversation and eat food that you've never tried before and talk to someone who has a different perspective than you do and listen to them. And, it's a great way to live your life because you
A
learn.
great idea.
And well, and it just is, it not only opens your mind, it opens their mind too. And I just wish more people would do that sort of thing.
Well, not to tie everything back to Maddie, but I'm going to tie this back to Maddie. It's very similar in, I said in my deeper well podcast episode that I felt like I was walking around life with a box of 8 crayons and somebody handed me a box of 32. That's what Maddie has done. And it's added so much color in different areas, social, and then the pod. I mean, we've talked about all that stuff. And so, and I'm meeting people I never would have met. And I'm making friendships I never would have made. And I'm making friendships in the LGBTQ community that I would have never made, even though I wasn't judgmental on the community. I wasn't friends with them, but now I understand them and I'm friends with them. And I've met people that I would never hang out with typically. And I missed a lot. I missed a lot of great people. And I got to tell you, there's, at least in my world, there's a lot more love in Maddie's world than in Jim's world. Jim has a great life. I feel very loved. I got a great family and great kids, and I have good friends. But in general, the general population is so at odds. And up until the attack on the trans community, my community was hardly any politics, and there's just maybe too much love. Everybody loves everybody. They love everything on Facebook, but it really is a good feeling. And it was an escape from my other Facebook, and Maddie's Facebook was pretty safe. Now it's full of, anger, justifiably so. But I even said the other day, I go, it'd be nice instead of just posting a meme that came by, on your Facebook profile, why don't you comment on the meme? So go ahead and share the meme, but share your perspective of the meme, which is maybe one step closer to having the conversation would be the best, right? But don't just forward the meme.
Well, that's too easy. I mean, that's the problem, is it's too easy to do those things, and it's cheap, it's easy, it takes no effort or thought, and it's just one step removed from anonymity. So people hide behind that. If you were ever to be sitting again next to somebody in a bar who had that opinion and you had a conversation, you would never have that kind of controversial dialogue. What you'd have is hopefully provocative conversation, and you can talk and teach each other or learn from each other. But I have found that whole environment meaninless,
Toxic.
Honestly. Well, it is toxic, and it's kind of a cesspool. So I would say if you're spending the time, my message on that is any amount of time you spend on that, go volunteer somewhere, teach a kid to read or whatever, will be far more valuable than the time you spend doing that.
Or maybe writing a journal or something.
Yeah,
to get it out. People do need
write
to vent.
Write a love song. I mean,
write a love song.
Write a love song.
Start a website.
Or dolphins or something. Yeah.
Start a cross-dressing company.
Yeah.
Well, I think that does it. Did you have any final words of wisdom or any more questions?
Well, I'll wrap it up with this. I don't know if you asked me this question specifically or if I just thought about it, but would I ever want to meet Maddie like this kind of? And my concern was whatever, to the degree I had a concern was Jim and I have this relationship. Kind of like, is this going to impede that relationship? It's like, am I having a relationship with two people? Are we going to have the same sense of humor with each other, the same kind of conversations, the same? And I will say that having done this, that sets that fear, if you will, aside. It's like, it's you.
That's a great question. I probably would have regretted not asking that after the interview. Was after talking to me live, how did you feel? I think you just answered that, which, yeah, I appreciate it. And I think I don't change my voice and I don't change a whole lot when I'm out and about. And I guess now you know that. Have you noticed anything different other than the hair, the eyelashes, the boots?
I've not noticed one. In fact, it's almost like we're back in college right now. Yeah. Have I noticed? No. I mean, in the way you speak, and it's funny because I am kind of just for a moment thought, okay, it just sounds just like you, but it sounds like Jim. And so, and I think I've even asked you before, do you change the way you speak when you're Maddie? And I think you've said maybe a little bit or something. I don't, it didn't get.
I have to tell one story before we leave.
I'm just wondering, are you speaking like this because it's me, or is this the way you speak in general?
Go watch my other 50 interviews.
Well, I think I watched one that you sent me, and I did ask you because there was a little different cadence to your voice, but I don't know if that was maybe, I don't know. You were kind of,
to be honest, maybe I might be I didn't think about it, but I might not be quite as overzealous about an answer or say, oh my God, or, of course that comes from my other friend. She says, oh my God, so much that it just comes out. But I got to tell the one story before we wrap up. And that is, I've told this story 100 times. You in college, you did most of the cooking. In fact, you did all the cooking. And you had the shrimp. You had the shrimp recipe, and you put shrimp on the Barbie, and that was one of my favorite dishes. And you sent me a random picture one time. This is a few years ago of just the shrimp on the barbecue. No text, no words, just the shrimp on the Barbie. And I was, I had my phone, and I just went, yummy. I texted back, yummy, and then we never spoke about it. And I think it was a year later. You're like, when you text back yummy, were you Jim or were you Maddie? And I had to think, and I'm like, oh, I was Maddie. And you're like, I don't know that Jim would text back yummy. You spotted that one right off.
Yeah, that was, well, it's funny. I think I told you I was at an event in Sacramento not too long ago. And it was, industry event. And there was a guy I was talking to, I've known for a long time. Big, he's kind of a big athletic guy and, kind of a guy's guy.
A manly man.
And we ordered some food at the table. There's all these people doing a little cocktail networking thing. And he picked up something to eat it and he ate it and he looked at it and he goes, yummy. And I just started laughing. I was like, there's only one other guy that's actually said yummy to me.
And so, did you find out how often do you cross-dress?
Well, it made me wonder, but no, I'm kidding.
That's funny.
But I do have one piece of advice for you, and that is that I feel like I've left you with maybe, and that is renaming your podcast to It's Not Lost on Me.
It's Not Lost on Me. Well, I'll start another one.
There we go.
And it'll be kind of like Seinfeld, where you just reference things, everyday things that people see.
That's it. Okay. That's good.
We'll be all over it. All right. Well, that does it for today. Brian, thank you very much for doing this. I know I was nervous and you were probably nervous, and I think we got more comfortable as we went along, but I'm glad it felt natural. I learned some things today. We've had a lot of these conversations, but I learned some things today. Hopefully you learned some. And I just appreciate your friendship and your wife's friendship. And so I look forward to having more Maddie conversations whenever you feel comfortable.
Of course. Well, It's been my pleasure, and I look forward to doing it again sometime.
Maybe sometime Maddie will come out, or Jim will come out, and Maddie will come out for one night. Dinner party.
We'll
Yeah,
have some.
we'll have all your friends and neighbors over. Yummy shrimp night. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And remember, be bold, be kind, be you.